Have you ever wondered why some seniors who seem perfectly healthy suddenly begin to decline? Not because of illness, but because of quiet isolation. Here's a surprising truth. Studies show that living alone after 75 can have the same health impact as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That's not a myth, it's science. And yet, millions of older adults live alone, thinking they're just managing fine. But behind the calm smiles and tidy homes, something unseen often grows. Something that steals energy, weakens the body, and dims the spirit. Stay with this story, because what you'll hear today might make you rethink what independence truly means. And if you're watching this right now, maybe alone in your living room or at your kitchen table, take a deep breath, because this video isn't about fear. It's about understanding, and the power to change things before it's too late. Meet Elaine Porter. She's 76, a retired librarian who lives just outside of Columbus, Ohio, in a quiet suburban neighborhood lined with dogwood trees and slow-turning wind chimes. Her home is cozy. 2 bedrooms, one filled with sunlight and the other with boxes she hasn't opened in years. She waters her houseplants every Thursday morning and always leaves her porch light on, just in case. Elaine's husband passed away 8 years ago, and since then she's lived alone. At first, she enjoyed the silence, the freedom to cook whatever she liked, rearrange furniture, and take long afternoon naps without interruption. But over time, that silence began to stretch. Days blended together. Meals became simpler. Toast and tea, a bowl of soup, a slice of banana bread. She still smiled when neighbors waved. She still told her daughter, "I'm fine," whenever she called. But some nights, Elaine would sit in her recliner, look around and whisper, "It's too quiet." Most people think the danger of living alone is simply falling or getting sick with no one around. And yes, that's part of it. 1 in 3 adults over 75 experiences at least one fall every year. And when you live alone, that fall can change everything. But there's another kind of danger that's far less visible: emotional and physiological isolation. When Elaine stopped hearing another voice in her home every day, her body subtly changed. Scientists call this the social regulation effect. Without regular human interaction, your brain stops producing the same levels of serotonin and dopamine that keep mood and motivation balanced. Your heart rate variability, the tiny measure of how well your body adapts to stress, drops. Your immune system weakens. Your blood pressure climbs. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow, quiet erosion. Elaine began forgetting simple things. Whether she'd locked the back door, where she put her reading glasses, what day her favorite TV show aired. She laughed it off, saying, "Just getting older." But researchers at the University of Chicago found that chronic loneliness in older adults can actually accelerate cognitive decline by up to 30%. That's not age. That's isolation. And if you've ever found yourself talking to the TV just to hear a voice back, you're not alone. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever done that without realizing it? Then something shifted. One morning, Elaine woke up and noticed she hadn't stepped outside in almost 4 days. The mail had piled up. The kitchen counter was cluttered. She wasn't depressed exactly, just slow, heavy. This happens to so many older adults. Psychologists call it social apathy syndrome. You don't feel dramatic sadness, you just stop reaching out. And each day of silence makes the next one harder to break. The truth is, our brains are wired for connection. Loneliness isn't just emotional. It's physical. It triggers the same part of the brain as hunger or thirst, telling you something vital is missing. Elaine's body began showing signs: mild fatigue, loss of appetite, occasional dizziness. She thought it was age, but her doctor said, "You're not getting enough stimulation. Not enough sunlight, not enough conversation, not enough movement." That advice hit her hard. She went home and sat in her favorite armchair, staring at the family photo above her mantel. Her husband was smiling, strong, confident. She whispered, "I'm still here. I just don't know how to keep living like this." And maybe you understand that feeling. That strange in-between, where you're not unhappy, but you're not fully living either. If you do, take a second to drop a red heart in the comments. You never know who you might comfort just by saying, Me too. The next day, something unusual happened. Elaine heard laughter outside her window. Two children chasing a ball across her lawn. She opened the door and waved. They smiled and apologized, then introduced themselves as her new neighbor's grandkids. That brief moment changed something. For the first time in months, Elaine felt her heart lift. Just a little. She realized that connection didn't have to be big or dramatic. It could start with hello. She made herself a promise. Every day she'd talk to one person. The mailman, the cashier at the grocery store, a neighbor walking their dog. First it felt awkward, but within 2 weeks her energy improved. She started cooking again. She slept better. She even joined a local Silver Walkers group at the nearby park. Here's what science says about that. According to the National Institute on Aging, just 15 minutes of social interaction daily can significantly reduce the risk of depression and heart disease in adults over 70. 15 minutes. That's less time than one TV episode. Elaine started inviting one person over for tea each week. And the more she did, the lighter her home felt, as though it was breathing again. So if you're watching this and thinking, I don't even know where to start, remember this. Connection doesn't always come to your door. Sometimes you have to open it yourself. What's one small way you could start today? Tell us below, you might inspire someone else. It was a Thursday morning, just like any other. Elaine woke up late, the sunlight already peeking through her curtains. She made herself a cup of tea and reached for the honey jar. Her hand slipped. The jar shattered on the counter, splashing hot tea onto her wrist. Startled, she stepped back, and her foot caught the corner of a rug. It fell. It wasn't a serious fall, but the shock was enough. She sat on the floor for nearly 15 minutes before finding the strength to stand. No one heard. No one knew. That night, she sat in her armchair with a small bandage on her wrist and a heavy silence around her. For the first time, she admitted it. If something worse had happened, who would I call? It was a question she had avoided for years. Now, it echoed louder than ever. Many seniors feel this way, proud of their independence, afraid to burden their children or friends. But sometimes independence can quietly turn into isolation. According to the CDC, nearly 28% of adults over 65 live alone, and by age 75, that number climbs even higher, especially among women. Most of them, like Elaine, insist they're fine. But here's the problem. When you live alone, every small accident becomes a private risk. A missed medication, a dizzy spell, a slip in the bathroom, all can spiral quickly without someone nearby. And emotionally, the danger deepens. Loneliness increases the risk of stroke by 32%, heart disease by 29%, and dementia by up to 50%. These aren't just numbers, they're people like Elaine. People who once filled rooms with laughter, now sitting in quiet houses, convincing themselves it's just part of getting older. But it doesn't have to be. A week later, Elaine's daughter, Sarah, called from Florida. She noticed her mother sounded different. Slower, distracted. Mom, are you sure you're okay? Elaine hesitated. Then, for the first time, she said softly, I had a little fall last week. The silence that followed was thick. Why didn't you tell me? Sarah asked. I didn't want to worry you, Elaine said. But deep down she realized, not wanting to worry her daughter had almost cost her more than she could afford. That night, Sarah sent her a small device in the mail, a fall detector and smartwatch combo. Please wear it, Mom, she said. Elaine rolled her eyes at first, but when it arrived, she put it on anyway. That single step would later save her life. It was early autumn when it happened again. Elaine was in the garden, trimming a rose bush, when she felt dizzy. The world tilted. She fainted. Within seconds, her device detected the fall and automatically alerted the local emergency line. Within minutes, help was on the way. When she woke up in the hospital, a nurse smiled and said, You're lucky. That device called us. It turned out to be mild dehydration, nothing severe, but the incident opened her eyes. Elaine stared at the ceiling that night and whispered, God, I don't want to live afraid, but I also don't want to live alone in silence. After returning home, something began to stir in her spirit. She realized that safety wasn't just about devices, it was about connection. She decided to attend a senior wellness program at her local community center. The first day, she almost didn't go. She stared at the door, unsure what to wear, her heart racing. But then she remembered something her husband used to say. "The world is still waiting for your smile." She smiled at the memory and stepped out. At the center, she was greeted by laughter, music, and friendly faces. A volunteer offered her tea. Another introduced her to a watercolor class. For the first time in years, Elaine felt her soul breathe again. She wasn't just managing anymore. She was living. Psychologists call it social nourishment. Just like food feeds the body, conversation feeds the mind. When you laugh, your brain releases oxytocin, a hormone that strengthens your immune system and reduces stress. When you share a meal, your heart rhythm synchronizes with others at the table. When you volunteer or join a group, your brain produces more serotonin, the same chemical found in antidepressants. Elaine didn't know any of this. She just knew she felt lighter, stronger, happier. Her appetite returned. Her memory improved. She even started sleeping through the night again. And the most beautiful part, she began calling others, checking in, encouraging them, inviting them to join her walks. Because healing doesn't just happen to you, it flows through you. Maybe you're watching this video right now and recognizing yourself in Elaine. Maybe you've said those same words. "I'm fine." But deep down you feel the silence. Here's what I want you to know. You're not weak for wanting connection. You're not needy for missing conversation. You're human. Living alone after 75 isn't a failure, but living disconnected can quietly steal your health, your joy, and your years. Today can be your turning point too. Start small. Call someone you love. Join a local senior group or Bible study. Say hello to a neighbor. Or even comment below and connect with others watching right now. You are seen. You are loved. You still matter. Because your story, just like Elaine's, isn't over yet. The next morning, the world seemed different to Elaine. The same walls that once felt like a cage now felt like a quiet sanctuary preparing her for something greater. The same teacup, the same chair, but a different heart behind them. She looked out her window and whispered, "Lord, thank you for giving me another chance to live, not just survive." That week, she began a new rhythm. Every morning, she would play soft worship music, stretch her arms toward the light, and say aloud one sentence. "Today, I choose connection." She meant it, even when it scared her. Elaine decided to attend a Tech for Seniors class at her local library. She was nervous, afraid she'd look silly not knowing how to use a smartphone properly. But when she walked in, she was met by smiles, not judgment. There was a retired teacher learning to FaceTime her grandchildren, a widower trying to figure out email, and a kind volunteer who patiently helped everyone, no matter how many questions they asked. Elaine laughed more that day than she had in months. At the end of the class, she turned to the volunteer and said, "You know, I thought I was too old to learn something new." He smiled and replied, "You're never too old to reconnect with the world." She went home feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Possibility. The next Sunday she brought cookies to church, something she used to love doing with her husband. People gathered around her table, complimenting the smell. "Elaine, you baked again," someone said. And just like that, she wasn't invisible anymore. She started helping with small tasks, arranging flowers, writing cards for new members, calling seniors who missed service. Her pastor noticed and asked, "Would you consider starting a phone prayer circle?" She hesitated, then said yes. By the following week, 6 women had joined. They prayed for each other, for their children, for peace in their hearts. Every evening, their voices lifted through phone lines like gentle waves of hope. And for the first time since her husband passed, Elaine slept peacefully, knowing she was part of something bigger again. Psychologists say that purpose can literally extend life expectancy. It lowers blood pressure, strengthens immunity, and improves memory retention, even for those in their 80s and 90s. But beyond the science, there's something deeper. Purpose is what gives your soul a reason to wake up. Elaine's new purpose was simple, yet powerful. She called 3 people every week just to check in. Sometimes they talked about faith, sometimes about the weather, sometimes they just sat in silence together. One woman told her, "You don't know what that call meant. I was sitting in tears when the phone rang." Elaine hung up and wept, not out of sadness but gratitude. God had turned her loneliness into ministry. She began journaling her days again. Each page became a reflection, a record of grace in the smallest moments. One entry read, "I used to think living alone meant being forgotten. Now I see it means having space to listen, to myself, to others, and to God." Elaine began sharing short reflections in her community newsletter. Her stories reached dozens, then hundreds. And though she didn't know it, one of those reflections would change another life entirely. One morning, she found a handwritten note in her mailbox. It read, "Dear Elaine, I read your story about finding peace after loneliness. I'm 81, and I was thinking of moving into assisted living because I couldn't handle the silence anymore. But after reading your piece, I decided to join the local walking club instead. Thank you for reminding me that it's never too late to start again." Elaine pressed the letter to her heart. She didn't cry this time, she smiled. Because she realized that her pain had been recycled into someone else's hope. Living alone after 75 can be risky, yes. But not just because of physical danger. The deeper risk is forgetting that you were never meant to walk this life alone. Human connection isn't a luxury. It's a lifeline. And community isn't just about being around people. It's about belonging to something that reminds you you're still valuable, still capable, still loved. Elaine's story proves that you can live alone, but you don't have to feel alone. If you're watching this right now and you've been sitting in that same quiet room day after day, this is your invitation. Pick up your phone, call a friend, join that class, visit your church again. Because connection won't always come knocking. Sometimes you have to take the first step toward it. Remember this. You're never too old to learn. Never too old to laugh. Never too old to start again. Your story still matters. And like Elaine, your next chapter could be your best one yet. Elaine's last journal entry reads, "I used to count my days by the clock on the wall. Now I count them by the people I pray for, the calls I make, and the joy I share. I may live alone, but I am never alone." And that's the message I want you to carry today. Loneliness doesn't define you. Love does. So before you go, take a deep breath. Think of one person you could reach out to. And remember, your voice could be someone else's lifeline tonight. If this story touched you, don't keep it to yourself. Comment below. I'm choosing connection today. Hit that like button. It helps more seniors find messages like this. And share this with someone you care about because you never know who might need it. Thank you for watching Reset for Seniors. Remember, your life is not behind you. It's right here, waiting to begin again.